having. But I think that was part of the original thesis, was like, hey, we have an opportunity here. I think our situation wouldn't have worked or not worked as well if we were in the US or in a market that has already, been saturated by, Bitcoin exposure. But for us, it was a very unique point in time, and we acknowledged that. We even said that in the, disclosures about, hey, why is there an opportunity here for us as an operating company? So we raised $70 million through the rights issue. All of a sudden, we had kind of an asset base. So then it was, okay, now that we have communicated to the market what our strategy is, we've, purchased Bitcoin 10 or 15 times, what's the next step? And I think that, it was, how do we kind of get, an ongoing sort of like ATM style equity issuance? The problem was we don't have one of those in Japan. There's no, the American capital markets are very advanced and friendly versus Japan, are not. So for us, it was kind of about, finding out how to finally, get something where we could be, accreting Bitcoin every trading day, especially at the valuations that, Metaplanet traded to. So we just kind of got there. That was this past week. Our quasi ATM went live. We announced a 21 million plan is what we titled it, but it's, to issue 21 million shares of, it's not an ATM, but they're called moving strike warrants. And so it's the same effect, but it's been perceived very well. So I think, it started at a $14 million market cap, approximately, and now it's like 1.6 billion. And so I think it's still, just the beginning of our journey. But there's a lot of really passionate Bitcoin investors, Bitcoiners in Japan and Tokyo, and they've kind of rallied behind our story. So it's been a whirlwind of a 10 months, but I think it's still just the beginning for us.
Can you walk us through the moving strike warrants a little bit for anyone that might not be familiar?
Yeah. So to basically reverse engineer the ATM facility, because in the US, you can be a $100 million company, and you could say, we're going to issue up to $10 billion of stock. And as long as you have the authorized shares to do so, you can issue any amount of shares you want into the market at any time. You have like full discretion, basically. And the bankers take their, 1 to 2 or 3% fee or whatever it is. But, it's one filing and done. For us in Japan, you can't do that. We can't just say, hey, we're going to issue 1 trillion yen of equity. You can't do that. But what you can do is the literal translation is stock acquisition rights. It's basically their warrants. We can issue warrants that have all sorts of provisions or clauses. So what we did is we decided this recent deal, the 21 million shares, 21 million plan, we issued 21 million shares of moving strike warrants, and the exercise price of those warrants adjusts to the previous day's close, 100% of the previous day's close. So it's zero discount. And so how does it work? Well, let's say the previous day's close was 100 and the market goes to 101. Well, our counterparty, Evo, who's an investment bank in Japan, can sell shares at 101 and exercise on that same day at the previous day's close at 100. So what they do is our largest shareholder gives Evo shares, lends them. Evo is then shorting into the market. I wouldn't say it's naked shorting, but they're shorting into the market, and then they exercise the shares to net up. The Metaplanet gets the cash. We buy Bitcoin. Evo covers their short position. New shares have entered circulation. It's a roundabout, reverse engineered way to do an ATM without having an ATM facility available to us. The beauty of it is, and it took some time to kind of communicate to our shareholders. We've done 2 moving strike warrant deals. The first one was 2.9 million shares, and we issued it, and we issued it 50% out of the money to start. So our shares we were trading at like 2,100. We said the initial exercise price is 32.88, 50% higher than the market, because we have a 2-week delay baked in. We don't want it. It's just that's the rules and regulations. So we can kind of strike this initial exercise price wherever we want. So we striked it high. We striked it 50% out of the money. And we announced this dilution round it was about 8% of shares outstanding. And it was a 3% discount moving strike once it starts to move. And the market after hours kind of tanked. People, because in Japan, moving strike warrants, it's a dilutive action. weak companies do it. And usually the discount is 8 to 10%, meaning the financer, market goes up, down, or sideways, they're making 8% spread. They're making a 10% spread. It's a great business to make 8% risk free. For us, the discount was a bit tighter, but it was also explaining to our shareholders, like, we're buying Bitcoin or the proceeds, Bitcoin per share is increasing. So what happened was we announced this 8% dilution. The market in the span of less than 2 weeks ripped 50% higher, and we executed. It was a 6-month plan or a 6-month time frame. We executed it in about 10 trading days, to raise $60 million. So we kind of circled up again and said, okay, and internally decided let's go bigger. The market knows what we're going to do. We've communicated our plan, so let's do 21 million shares. The symbolism aside, that's about a 50-55% dilution round. So we said this is a 2-year plan. We're going to do it incrementally, but the discounts can be 0%. And which you might ask, how can it be 0%? The reason is, most stocks are 8 to 10. The reason that you can do 0 is because of volatility. Mm-hmm. So the interesting idea is that, everybody, especially not everybody, but the Bitcoin MicroStrategy, hive mind now understands volatility is vitality. Saylor just borrowed $2 billion at 0 due in 2030. How? Well, it's a convertible bond and that equity option is very valuable. For us, we haven't issued any convertible bonds, but we've issued equity at the market. And we had the cheapest equity financing of anyone in Japan. The moving strike warrant deal we announced was tied for the lowest discount ever, 0. And it was also the largest moving strike warrant deal in Japanese capital market history when we announced it. And it's the idea is that our common stock is so volatile, partially because we have a Bitcoin balance sheet and partially because, people like to trade. It's very liquid. It's, relatively small at $1.5 billion. It was smaller. And so because, how much would you pay, Tim, for a 2-year moving strike warrant on MicroStrategy? You can buy MicroStrategy at the previous day's close every single day, right? And so when MicroStrategy's up 8%, there's a big profit opportunity for you. But for us, it's like we're going to use that volatility to raise capital. And on favorable terms. And so I think we announced this 50% dilution round. We have a 2-week waiting period. Our stock was 4,000. We said our initial exercise price is 55. And in 2 trading days, since it's gone live this week on Monday, we've raised $20 million at 6,000 yen per share on average. It's every time we raised equity, we've done it a few times. The first initial exercise price was 200, and then we raised 100% of shares outstanding at 555. Then we raised 8% of shares outstanding at 3,200, and now we just diluted a few percentage points at 6,000 yen. So every time we've raised equity, it's been at a higher price, and we've accreted. We've put all of it into Bitcoin. I kind of gave you a whole lot of details there. But the moving strike warrants, there's a lot going on, but really fundamentally what it is just our version of an ATM, where we don't have one.
Got it. Is there anything to the culture in Japan and there not being as much shorting activity in the market, or is that not really a thing? And then if you want to touch on just like American versus Japanese culture in general, or just anything interesting that you've kind of seen a theme of, or just takeaways from, being both here and there a little bit.
So, it's interesting because, it's obviously my first, experience with working at a public company. It's a unique experience I'm treasuring, but, the idea of short sellers, it's kind of like this, like those darn short sellers, but I think for us, and I saw Michael Saylor say something along these lines, I don't know how many months ago. For us, it's almost like, well, okay, they're short now, but you're a future buyer. So for us, it's like, well, the good news is part of our Bitcoin treasury operations is raising capital in the market. To do that, if there's a seller, you need a buyer. So if people want to short MetaPlanet to buy Bitcoin, then, great. Like, cause you're a future buyer later. I mean, there's plenty of people that short this stock. There's, I think Morgan Stanley at one point, and who knows who it is. I think there's a bunch of entities behind this, but Bloomberg had Morgan Stanley short like 5% of our shares outstanding a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure what it is now, but yeah, I mean, there's the beauty of MetaPlanet compared to Bitcoin for a Japanese retail investor or investor generally, as a public operating company, is that, Japan, everybody has a brokerage account in Japan, and it's marginable. So there's a lot of people that love day trading in Japan. Like, everybody has a brokerage account, everybody day trades. Never mind the fact that there's a tax difference. So crypto is treated as ordinary income, Bitcoin, crypto. So if you buy or sell Bitcoin and you make a lot of money in Japan, you pay 55% tax. If everyone has the same tax rate long term